A woman who was involved in the Black Lives Matter protest that led to Edward Colston's statue being thrown into Bristol Harbour has pleaded guilty to fraud after £30,000 mysteriously went missing. Xahra Saleem admitted one count of fraud by abuse of position. She set up a GoFundMe page in 2020 before the Colston protest. Now, any money left over was due to be given to a charity, but none of the money is alleged to have been handed over. Fascinating. Joining me now is GB News presenter Nana Akua. Nana, great to have you on the show. Thank you very, very much. I mean, what do you make of this?
Well, to be honest with you, Patrick, I'm not even slightly surprised at all of this. If you look at the sort of background of Black Lives Matter, because she was kind of working in their name, Patrisse Cullors, she was one of the founding members of Black Lives Matter in the States. And of course, there was huge question over what happened to a lot of the money that she acquired from Black Lives Matter. I think they made about 90 million in terms of dollars there, just literally capitalizing on white guilt, which is what they called it themselves. So it really is no surprise that this woman, Xahra Saleem, I think her name's, I think that's how you said, she's 23. Apparently it was about £30,000 that she had got on a GoFundMe page. It was meant for masks and things like that for people at the demonstration. What was left was meant to go to a charity called Your Mindset. And in the end, of course, that money didn't go to the charity. And it's quite sad because near the end, as you read through the article, it seems as though that charity was of people, young people, many of whom aren't here anymore. So it sounds like that was, and it was to take them to Africa. So, you know, this comes as no great surprise. And I hear it a lot. And these are people who are capitalizing on a form of white guilt, really, making a lot of people feel guilty and cadging on the back of something, toppling that statue. Of course, very posh names of people who toppled the statue. They didn't face any criminal charges, which I find astonishing. But, it's in her interests, especially in a lot of black people's interests, some of them supporting Black Lives Matter, to keep this victimhood narrative going because there's money in it. There's money in being a victim. I mean, Harry and Meghan have showed you that if there's anything to be seen. But that's why a lot of them wouldn't like someone like me who calls it out and says, look, Black Lives Matter, the name itself is divisive. The movement is divisive. And in the end, guess what? Turns out that some of the organisers there are embroiled in what will appear to be fraud. It is no surprise at all, Patrick.
No, exactly. And what do you make of the way that she turned up to court? I think we've got a picture for people listening on radio. I'll talk you through it. It doesn't take me too long to talk you through it, basically. She's wearing a burqa, so there you go, with glasses on as well. I mean, what do you make of that? And a heavy raincoat. I mean, is there something of the coward about that, do you think?
Well, there is something. I mean, listen, she may say she's Muslim, which perhaps she is, and that's why she's wearing the burqa and the glasses. Fair enough, but she's hiding her face, which doesn't say much. We've got pictures of her anyway, so it's not going to do anything for her cause. But this is what discredits these kind of movements. They're supposedly Marxists. Marxists are supposed to be sharing out. Patrisse Cullors, turns out she bought about 5 different properties, gave money to her brother or whoever it was that was in the organisation. Others within the organisation actually criticised her for capitalising on the whole issue of racism. And to me, it's just yet another ridiculous phenomenon, Black Lives Matter. And, well, I couldn't stand it at the start. And I was right. It's just to me, it's just a fraudulent organisation. That's my view.
Yeah, and just tell me a little bit, Nana. You mentioned there about how you would not particularly, your views would not be viewed particularly favourably, potentially, amongst the, I'm generalising here, but wider black community, or BLM supporting black community, I suppose. Why is that?
Well, because I've called it out, haven't I? I've looked at it and said, look, there's very little that a black person can't do that a white person can do. In fact, I can't think of anything. And a lot of these movements are actually, to me, they're quite backward movements because you're asking to go back to almost a form of apartheid where you're separating people based on the colour of their skin and then you're privileging or not privileging. And I think it's divisive because it's upsetting for a lot of white people who will see that and don't see it this way. And it's divisive for people who aren't of the race that you're saying the life matters. And for me, seeing that, I'll be honest, I face more racism from black people than I ever have from any white people. And just simply for calling a lot of this out, I find it incredible that would be the case. But that is the bottom line, in my experience, that some of the most racist people towards me have been people of colour because they're not happy with me because I'm supposedly a traitor for daring to say that this particular behaviour is unacceptable. And I'm quite tired of seeing it, really. People need to stop calling things out in terms of colour, try to stop seeing colour in individuals and look at what they're doing, and using an organisation like Black Lives Matter to cover over when you're doing something bad and illegal, so fraudulent, is just quite typical, really, of this sort of thing, to be honest. Doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
No, great. Thank you very much. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show as well, of course. There's Xahra Akua there. It's GB News presenter, fan favourite, absolute fan favourite.